Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Ready Speaker. This is Roland Rucci, your host. Thank you for joining my channel. Thank you for giving me a watch, I guess. A look. I don't say watch, but a look, not a physical watch, but a look. You know what I mean? So we're on this. So this week's episode is A Man Called Otto. This is a 2022 film. It's a remake of A Man Called Ove, or Ove, a Swedish film from 2015. And I think it was a book before that as well, a novel. So this basic premise of the story is there's a widow, played by Tom Hanks, who's just not feeling great about his life and where he is now. He's alone. So he's a recent widower, and he lives in a small housing community that's being overdeveloped all around it. It's set in PA. I'm not sure if it's West or Eastern PA. It could look like either. I think it was set in Pittsburgh or shot around the Pittsburgh area, but I go to Eastern PA all the time, and it looks very similar. So a lot of hills, a lot of mountains. And it says feelings of, I don't know, not feeling attached or people not following the rules, and he's sort of an engineer guy, and he's very clinical and detail-oriented, and he doesn't like when people sort of deviate from those sort of things. So he doesn't like stupid people. It's just a nice summary of how he relates to people, and he feels if they're not common sense, logical, or respectful, he considers them, just not worth dealing with, and he gets very angry with them, and he tries to show his patience. So it's a cute film. I'm not going to say it's the best film of 2022. It's probably his swing at sentimentality at this age. And I like it that Tom Hanks is sort of embracing his age. A lot of actors, a la Michael Douglas at this point, would be, hey, let's do something with a 25-year-old wife. And he's not doing that. He's embracing his age, and that's not a diss on him or anything. But it's someone who's finding a character, finding a remake that can fit, and he can do some good stuff in there. And he has some really, really good moments in it. It's a little different than he usually is. Tom Hanks always plays these very approachable people. They're gruff, but they have he plays gruff characters, but usually in a funny context. And this film, it takes a while to see his heart a little bit, and where he can be happy, and because he constantly falls down the hole of I'm a widower, and he's a recent widower. I've already mentioned that earlier, but he's a widower, and he's alone, and his life sort of doesn't have a lot of meaning, and that's, I guess, the crux of it. He meets various people. What happens is a new couple moves in, and that is Marisol, and they're a new couple with children move in across the street, and they try and be friendly with him and everything. And then that's like the catalyst of him opening up to his community, because he's sort of like the curmudgeon. Hey, get out of here! Don't walk on don't go on my lawn. Why are you walking on the street? Recycling has to be broken up in this ways. So in this way and that way. And there's other people, like this hipster couple with a dog, and people don't really work. And that's actually the interesting thing. It doesn't seem like anybody actually works here. Even he's a retiree. He's retired from his job for a long time. He just stepped away from everything and just wants to probably bow out of life on his terms. And that's sort of how he's giving up on people and not doing anything. So it's like I said, it's a sentimental watch. It's an okay watch. I probably will watch the original film just to see how it changes and sort of culturally what the difference is. The big take, I think, it is a bit of savior, older white man savior show, where he's the know-it-all for the whole community. He has his friend who is sick, and he helps that family out with things. He helps Marisol and her husband, who's not very technically inclined or mechanically inclined, to make repairs. He even takes in a transgender youth as someone who's pushed away by something. So he's not the typical gruff stereotype that you see. It's just the way it's portrayed. He deals with people in a direct fashion, and if they're honest with him and if they speak about their troubles, he will go out of his way to help them. And he likes to go a little quid for pro. Do something for me, I'll do something for you, because he feels like bartering is a very American thing. He even likes American cars only, and I like stick shift, which I love stick shift. Love driving stick shift, and the fact that he thinks that a driver should know how to drive stick shift. So he's caught in like a time capsule in his heart and his mind. And it's kind of interesting. There are flashbacks, and the young Otto is played by his son. I forget which which one he is. But I'll tell you, he's probably the weakest part of the film. I'll be honest with you. I'm sure they're gonna say, people say, oh no, he auditioned for it and everything, and that's why he got the part. It wasn't because he was his son. But in all honesty, he was not the strongest. I think it's Truman Hanks. There it is. He's not the strongest actor for this. I think they could have found something else. He sort of falls away for me, and his depiction of the character and where he is in life sort of just makes me feel a little. It put me a little off, and even the character development of Otto being an engineer and being very mechanically inclined and very specific and loving gadgets. It didn't really play off that well as much in his son as it did with him. Now that could be a learned thing, but I just didn't feel it as much as it could have felt, and his understanding. I get it, when you get older, you know more things, and you sort of just say things like everybody should know it. There's a bit with a bicycle, just adjust the derailleur. I know that has to be done. I've never done it, but I could definitely feel my old man voice saying, yeah, just adjust the derailleur and you're fine. You can fix your bike, and it's not that hard to fix. Look it up on YouTube and you can figure it out, which I think is a common thing nowadays. It's just I feel like it almost landed too serious for a long time, and that's probably why I didn't get the big buzz it probably would have gotten for a Tom Hanks film. And I think there's a little bit of backlash in the last year or so about nepotism in Hollywood, which has always been there. You always got to know somebody. But his son playing the younger version of him, I just wish it was more believable. I don't, just doesn't. I think they might have been better off just looking for an actor who was able to mimic the nuances of Tom Hanks and maybe showed a little bit more of a youth quality rather than just a snapping quality. And that was part of the story. And again, this is from the script, not necessarily the acting, but he was an angry, sort of hot-tempered youth guy who just had to get into people's faces when he felt he was wronged. And he's still that old guy, so there isn't really a deviation. There's nothing where he's tainted. He was kind of born tainted, kind of born angry. So I don't know if that really was intended, but that's how it came across to me as a film. Again, I think it's an admirable film. I think it's fine to watch. I think it's a good sit-down film you can watch with somebody. I probably wouldn't have seen it in the theater. I saw it on streaming at home. I think it can be fun at times, and there's a couple of cute bits that he does. The style-wise, filmy-wise, I like that they did it local. It was really an outside film. It was shot, a lot of it was outside. And the inside is more the heavy scenes. But his life is that housing community, this little U-turn of a thing. It's like a block in, block out community of these little row houses. And that's where all the action really, really happens. So he's constantly walking in front of that community and checking on it as the watchdog. And that's part of the storytelling. It's part of the visual, which I really enjoyed. I enjoyed that aspect of it. So it didn't feel closed in, even though he felt closed in as a character with his life and where he was, and he constantly remembers his milestones of where we get and where he got some of the anger from, and where he got some of the lashing out sort of temperament, and we got to make things right. And I think he has a very strong moral compass of what's right and wrong. Thinking about it, I think that's very true of that character, and I think Tom Hanks plays that well, where he has a moral compass. I think he always has that in all the films he does. He has sort of like a moral compass that's very locked in, and it's not ambiguous. And I think that really comes off here. And then again, it's nice seeing him taking on the role where it's not the young guy or the business guy. Not that he usually does. I think he takes a lot of interesting roles on, and there's a lot of fun with him. And his list of films that you find enjoyable can be really, really long, and they can be drama, they can be comedy, they can be lighthearted, they can be, oh my God, what the hell happened, and just numbing. And he's never shy of exiting a character. I think Saving Private Ryan, he's the leader, the father figure, or the older brother figure, I'll say, of all these guys trying to find Ryan, and he gets beat down. He gets beat down by the end, and this is another film where it's okay for him to sort of fail, and okay for him to have these doubts about how he's rationalized it. And it's a big thing too. When I was talking about this recently about actors like a Gene Hackman, which is an amazing actor. He's well into retirement, but watching some films of his, you always understood that he was thinking about, well, the character was thinking about what was going on. Pacino does this, especially earlier in this film. There's a lot of thinking going on, sometimes a little over the top, but there's a lot of thinking going on in his head, like Dog Day Afternoon. And Tom Hanks is very much like that too. He has like a smirk and a smile about him, but you can see the character's thinking about what's going on and what the next step is, and where where to take it. Now this one, sometimes he escalates very quickly, and it's not a usual Tom Hanks sort of setup for me. But again, I think this is just a story. It's a different path he took. I wish they would have recast the younger version of him. I think that would have been a better choice. Again, just my opinion. But I think everybody else in it was pretty stable. It's very theatrical. It's the way it's laid out, the way everybody's fully formed. It's him having the evolution, and I've been noticing that a lot with films lately, and how to look at them, and are the characters fully developed, and sometimes the main character goes through a moment where everybody else is sort of forming themselves around them, and that's what push them along the line. But in this type of film, he's being introduced to different things and emotions that they were suppressed, and he's forming to his fully formed self by the end, and the other characters come into the film fully formed, very much like theater. And I did feel that, and maybe because it's based on a European novel and a European production, which have a lot of times they have very theatrical themes and settings and tempo and all that, because it's a fully formed. No one's thinking about part twos, and I think that's a very American thing. We're trying to think about sequels and everything and prequels and all that, and this doesn't have that. This is everyone is fully formed by the end, and you know where they are, and they're in a good place. I thought of an idea as I was thinking about this, and I wanted to come back into the. So that was a cut. Sorry about that. I think the big tell of this movie, at least for me, is that Otto never really lived a full life after the sort of the struggles to start with his wife, and all these characters represent a part of what his full life would have been, his family would have been, and in the end he's not alone. So you have somebody who represents a child, somebody who represents growth, nurturing, somebody who represents just help and friendship. So I think that's one of the big things. So I just wanted to bring that in here, because I think that is an interesting way to look at it, and it probably digs deep into the heart of it, is that these people represent his family and what he was missing his whole life, and probably that's what made him angry. So there you go. And now back to the review. So it is a feel-good movie. I definitely give it a watch. I'd even give the original a watch, and maybe even the novel, if you're so inclined. I think it's an interesting story. Some parts didn't really read that well for me, but that's just a couple, like any movie. Some of his anger, I don't know if I believed it a couple times, but that's just me, or the reaction of the other people, how they reacted to his anger, so, but again, that's just storytelling. But give it a watch. It's definitely, above average, definitely above average. Not the best film, I would say, for 2022, but definitely above average. Decent ensemble. I mean, the way they're breaking down the cast, it's kind of funny, but there were people in it who were, at least when I saw the credits, there were people in it that were in for most of the movie, and they were like really low down on the credits, which I was like surprised. So that made no sense to me. They should have been higher up. And even here, top cast, you have Marisol and Otto, but a couple other people that I don't know. You have Hardware, store clerk. I don't know why he's top cast. So he was in one scene. And you have Malcolm, who was in multiple scenes. You have Jimmy, multiple scenes, way down. You have some interesting things. So yeah, definitely give it a watch. And like I said, hit subscribe, come back, maybe ping me, message me, and say, I'd like to do a discussion about a film that came out, and we can talk about it and get your idea, and not argue, but discover new things. I think when you talk about a film, you discover things, and you discover a perspective, and that's always how I try and watch movies. I try and figure out the perspective of how to enjoy it. Not every movie is great. Some movies can be campy, some movies can be easy, some movies can be jokey, but I I like to see the perspective of the storytelling, and I think this has an interesting perspective about how it's told. So, all right, great. Talk soon. I'll see you soon. Ready Speaker, subscribe, like, share, please. All the best. Bye.